gotten a little bit kind of, it wasn't ideal, the situation in the goat house. And, I'm a new goat owner, so I'm learning these things. And so I was in there for probably, I don't know, half an hour cleaning up some pretty nasty stuff that just, animals create messes. And anyway, but I had seen a handful of people saying and asking, well, Seth, what have you done to treat yourself? So I thought I'd just take a quick second to share that because, I'm interviewing doctors almost weekly. Probably half of my content is medical and health related. And so it begs the question of like, okay, well, Seth, what do you do when you fell ill, right? Do you sneak off to the Western doctor and get some new pharmaceuticals? No, actually. So I'll tell you just quickly, just a handful of things that I did. I think that all worked in conjunction. And thankfully I've got a lot of good friends that are, doctors or people that are highly involved in the medical situation. So I can text them and get some good feedback. So like, Dr. Brian Ardis is someone I regularly, consult, or Carrie Madej, or Jonathan Otto, who's, brilliant when it comes to CDS. So anyway, so what I did is I used, Dr. Brian Ardis has a thing called Biodefense, which is I think it's black cumin seed oil is one of the main ingredients. It tastes disgusting, so I'll just tell you that, but it's very effective. Actually, our nanny had Lyme disease recently. She got bit by a tick, which is a whole different story about government bioweapons. And we gave her some of the Biodefense, and she recovered like very, very quickly. I think a lot of it was because of the Biodefense. So I took Biodefense. I think probably the two biggest things that I did that made an impact were red light sessions. So we've got a red light panel, and I think I probably did 3 or 4 different like 1 hour red light sessions. I think that was really important. Actually, I fell asleep under the red light, which was kind of nice. And then also CDS, pardon me. So chlorine dioxide. I did some like really high dose, long hour and a half long baths where I did, I think it was like 100 mils of the CDS solution. I think Jonathan Otto, I texted him and he gave me a whole protocol. So I did a couple like very long CDS baths, and then did some intense kind of heavier dose CDS water as well. And I think actually it was the CDS. It was actually a combination of the CDS and red light one day. I think the next day that really helped turn things around. In addition to that, just a lot of just other kind of health protocols. I don't have sitting here. I was going to show you my chronic silver. I took some chronic silver, some of the nasal spray. We have some deep lung stuff. A few kind of things that we've gotten from Mike Adams. He's got some really good health related items. Elderberry, took a bunch of elderberry with these little elderberry sachets. Took a bunch of those. Ginger, some more natural things. And then I did a couple rounds of acupuncture as well. I'm a big believer. Like if you look at our medical system and we're trying to discover what was going on 100 years ago, and how much was lost. Well, if you look in the traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, what you see is that they've got thousands of years of history of their medical system. And that medical system, if you go to the origins, like a true traditional Chinese medicine doctor, it wasn't corrupted. Nowadays in China, a lot of their medicine has been influenced by the West. And so you have a lot of the Western medicine, the pharmaceuticals and everything that are influencing, but a lot of people over in China, not just China, but Asia in general, still follow TCM. And so the acupuncture is actually surprisingly effective as well. A few other, kind of things as well, diet, sunlight, laying in the sun, that was helpful as well. But that was, I might be missing a couple of things, but that was the main mix of what I did, to I think to really recover. So for those of you that are asking, that's probably like the main kind of cocktail that I did. And that's normally our main thing is as well. Also, I think I did a little bit of CBD, not too much. We have a topical CBD cream that I use sometimes. I think I did some of that on my chest. We have like a menthol type one. It's like a CBD kind of organic, nicer version of like Vicks, like the more menthol vapor stuff. And these are all the same products that we'll use with our kids. Like the Biodefense is a we have a swimming pool. If they come in, if they have an earache or something, Biodefense in the ears works wonders. And also apple cider vinegar in the ears is actually really well, works great for kids as well. So anyway, before I jump into today's story, I wanted to give you just that quick overview because I really try to practice what I preach. The interviews I do, the information that I'm learning along with you, my wife, Kate, and I, we we try so hard to implement this stuff in our daily lives. We got rid of our smart meter. We have a grounding mat on our bed. We do all kinds of healthy things. We eat very, very well. So anyway, that's how I'm back. And sorry I haven't published, as many shows as I normally do over the past couple of weeks, but just been kind of recovering and taking some time just to heal myself, which is important because I tend to just keep going and say, no, it's okay. I'll be okay. And it's the case until I'm not. So like the other day, I think my fever was at 102.5 almost all day, which was not nice. But I actually think what actually helped with that was the CDS bath. That was one of the days I did the CDS bath, and it was really helpful. So getting into today's story on organ harvesting. So there's two parts to today's show. The first part, I'm just going to talk about some recent stuff that's come to light in the past couple of days about basically how our own hospital system here in America has been murdering people, literally taking people that were still alive and extracting their organs. I'll get into it. It's absolutely disgusting and frightening. And then the second half of the show is actually, I'm going to publish an interview that I did early on in the days of Man in America, where through a friend of mine, a guy named Mitchell Gerber, who is an expert in especially exposing communism, China, he's over in that region. I was asking him to come back on the show for this interview, but he actually has to stay kind of low right now for a few different reasons I won't talk about publicly. But it's an interview where he lined up and he helped bring on this guest that was a surgeon in China that fled China because he was basically being forced to do live organ harvesting in China. And so hearing it from him is mind blowing. I remember this is one of the earliest interviews I did. I think it was back in 2021, but absolutely incredible interview and very revealing. But hearing it from the doctor that fled China because he was being forced to do live organ harvesting, and the stories that he has, and he also talks about why a lot of the Uyghurs and the Muslim population are being kept in the camps there. And he reveals that the Uyghurs, actually, one of the main kind of benefits of them is that they can supply organs to the Middle Eastern buyers that are primarily Muslim, and they don't want to have organs that don't adhere to their way. I think it's halal is what they're kind of, kind of like you have that kosher for the Jewish and halal, I think, for the Muslim. So they want halal organs basically. And so he gets into that. And I think that was the first time I'd ever heard that. And he revealed it. And it's like, I would trust the guy that fled China talking about this stuff. So that will be the second half of today's show. But first off, let me just go ahead and dive in to this. Crazy story. This guy, Robert Sterling, he says, people on Twitter have been talking about premature organ harvesting for years. I'll be honest, I thought it was a conspiracy theory. I was wrong. It's real and it's horrific. Now, maybe he thought that the conspiracy theory was whether it was taking place in America, because I mean, it's been proven this has been happening in China for a very, very long time. Not to mention, I mean, there's an entire black market of organ harvesting. But if you look at more state-run, this is what they were getting into. So this is just an article that the New York Times recently published. This is really making its waves. It says a push for more organ transplants is putting donors at risk. It says people across the United States have endured rushed or premature attempts to remove their organs. Some were gasping, crying, or showing other signs of life. It says, but in recent years, as the system has pushed to increase transplants, a growing number of patients have endured premature or bungled attempts to retrieve their organs. Though Ms. Hawkins' case is an extreme example of what can go wrong, a New York Times examination revealed a pattern of rushed decision-making that has prioritized the need for more organs over the safety of potential donors. In New Mexico, a woman was subjected to days of preparations for donation even after her family said that she seemed to be regaining consciousness, which she eventually did. In Florida, a man cried and bit on his breathing tube but was still withdrawn from life support. In West Virginia, doctors were appalled when coordinators asked a paralyzed man coming off sedatives in an operating room for consent to remove his organs. He says, this is insane. It continues, the Times found that some organ procurement organizations, the nonprofits in each state that have federal contracts to coordinate transplants, are aggressively pursuing circulatory death donors and pushing families and doctors towards surgery. Hospitals are responsible for patients up to the moment of death, but some are allowing procurement organizations to influence treatment decisions. Now, I thought one of these responses here is quite telling as well. This guy, Ben Little, said, "One of my very best friends works for a major hospital group in Indiana, told me crazy stories that the organ harvesters would be hovering over a still alive patient of theirs with no certainty of death, like literally having to kick them out of the rooms," which is just insane. But do you keep hearing more cases of your friends and family getting a life-threatening diagnosis of cancer? Or perhaps it's even happened to you? Well, the unfortunate reality is that turbo cancer is now a worldwide epidemic. But the question we should all be asking is, what can I do about it? Well, the good news is that there are therapies that are working and proven in thousands of clinical studies. So one study on PubMed found that breast cancer's growth rate dropped by 40% in only 24 hours after using red light therapy. Another study on prostate cancer found that 49% of the over 400 male participants went into remission with just one red light therapy session. A lymphoma cancer pilot study showed that 3 out of 3 of the patients became cancer-free. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. And you can discover all this information and more in a special training program from investigative medical journalist Jonathan Otto, who will show you how you can use red light, including the specific wavelengths as proven by studies, for all different types of cancer, as well as tinnitus, weight loss, wrinkles, acne, dementia, cognitive function, depression, anxiety, long COVID, jab injury, stem cell regeneration, lower back pain, sciatica, the whole array of autoimmune diseases, including thyroid disease, arthritis, lupus, and gut disorders, and so much more. In fact, you can get your own in-home red light therapy device risk-free, as you're completely covered by a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 3-year warranty. On top of that, we've got financing options so you can get it now and pay later. And the best thing, folks, is that this technology has become amazingly affordable. It's way less than you'd expect, with the smaller units costing only a couple $100. So just go to myredlight.com to make sure you don't miss out this free special training program and claim the extremely limited time bonus gifts and discounts, which include an additional 10% off with the coupon code SETH. Again, go to myredlight.com to get access to the free training. And if you make a purchase, make sure you use a promo code SETH, that's SETH, to get an additional 10% off the already heavily discounted red light therapy products. What's crazy is that I have my own personal experience with this. So my older brother, he passed away when he was 33. I was 30, he was 33. This happened, I think it was back in 2014 or 2015. And now he wasn't an organ donor because he, I think, saw through the system and didn't trust the medical system, and he was smart in that way. However, so basically I'll give you a quick summary of what happened, because it was actually a catastrophic failure on the hospital's part. So he had been sick for a little while and wasn't really sure what it was, and kept trying to kind of just kind of ignore it a little bit. And but then one day, he kept saying his chest was feeling really heavy. He's having struggle breathing, and so his wife had took him into the ER. Well, as soon as they did the vitals on him, they freaked out, right? And I was actually in Hong Kong on a business trip at this time, which is kind of a whole different story. But so what happened is they ran his vitals, and they discovered that through kind of examining everything, that he had all this fluid in his chest. And I think this is where I think they made a big mistake. So what they did is they drained about 2 liters of fluid from his chest cavity. So his body had produced 2 liters of excess fluid in his chest cavity. Now, the reason that his body had produced this fluid is because he had a large tumor, right? He had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it had developed into a large tumor that was over his heart and his left lung. And so when they drained that fluid from his chest cavity, his chest cavity collapsed in, and the tumor compressed, stopped his heart, and collapsed his left lung. So as soon as they drained that fluid, he went into instant cardiac arrest. And so they instantly started doing CPR. They did CPR, I think it was for 15 minutes before they could hook him up to an ECMO machine. So an ECMO machine is basically an external heart. So it's a machine that pumps your blood for you. And what they do, or they did with him, because I flew back like instantly from Hong Kong, and I was actually lived in the lobby of the hospital for like 3 or 4 months. Like the first 3 or 4 months, I never even set foot in my apartment at that point, and it was kind of a crazy, really kind of traumatic kind of process. It took about 18 months before he finally passed, unfortunately. Anyway, so what the ECMO. It's I think it's your two femoral arteries. You have these two arteries, that kind of major ones that go down through your thighs, and so that's where they kind of connect one in and one out, and it creates your heart. So, but when he went through that period it was basically a period of like a massive stroke, right? He had a 15-minute period of extremely limited oxygen to his brain, which caused catastrophic brain damage, and so. This is a situation where I think it would be very common for someone to come in and say, look, he's not going to wake up. Let's go ahead and take him. He could be an organ donor. He can save another life. Let's go ahead and just do it. Now, because he wasn't an organ donor, they didn't do that immediately, which is obviously good. But I remember, honestly, it took for the first like 3 weeks, all we heard from the doctors was that he's never going to wake up. He's not, like they said, like, look, they had him on like a high dose kind of tranquilizer to keep him in a medically induced coma. And they said, look, whenever we reduce these tranquilizers, we're seeing brain waves indicative of seizures. And so they're saying, look, so as soon as we pull him off these coma drugs, he starts having seizures. And so they said, like, his brain is catastrophically damaged. He's not going to wake up. Now, his wife and I, we and my family as well, but we his wife and I especially, because we both lived in New York City at the time. We were kind of really a team in this, and between the two of us, we were always next to him. Like we had shifts, so we were always bedside with him, like 24 hours a day. And then my mom was there, and et cetera. She was also spent a lot of time there at the hospital. But what happened though is we said no, it doesn't matter. Like we have faith. Like we believe that there's something higher than called God, and you are the doctors, and you are not God. So he's still alive. And we're not going to believe you. And so after, I think it was around 3 or 4 weeks, he started showing signs of life, blinking, his eyes started opening. I remember he kind of would grab with his hands a little bit. And even then, because these doctors were so arrogant and they refused to be wrong, they mocked us. Like, I mean, honestly, they were like, it's almost like that they spoke to us as if we were idiots for thinking we knew more than them. And we're like, no, look, we're telling you, he's starting to communicate with us. And they're like, no, there's no way. There's no way. Like he's brain dead. There's no way. They brought in palliative care and started talking to us about end of life procedures and pulling the plug. And we refused it. And after maybe 6 weeks or so, he actually started waking up. And I think none of the doctors apologized. None of them came in and said, look, we're so sorry, we were wrong. We should have listened to you. But he actually started waking up. And now he had catastrophic brain damage, and he had seizures, and he is partially paralyzed and everything. But actually over the course of the next 9 months, when we were with him in the hospital, he slowly woke up. And he started kind of coming to a point that he was having conversations with us, and he started doing physical therapy. And so he actually came back. Now he, even at 9 months, he still had a lot of issues neurologically and everything, but he came back. It's like the doctors were wrong. So when I read these stories about them convincing people and telling people, hey, look, your loved one, like they're passed, which I'll get more into details of this. And I just feel like, gosh, I've been there. I know what it's like when all the doctors are saying, just, give up hope. He's not coming back. Let's just go ahead, and I could imagine that conversation where they're saying, look, you can save 3 other lives if you allow him to be an organ donor. Okay. But we saw that he came back, right? He got out of the hospital and he lived back at home. We had an in-home health person, and his wife stayed home a lot with him. And I took my shifts too to stay with him because he needed full-time assistance because he was paralyzed. And he still was having seizures, and we were still battling the tumor, and he was going through chemo. And this was before I knew anything that I know now about the modern health system. I mean, now it's like I don't really fear cancer. I mean, I fear actually, I don't really fear a whole lot, but like now I look at cancer as something, it's like, oh, okay, well, you can treat it with these ways. You don't run straight to chemo, right? Because that's not always the best solution. There's a lot of solutions that, people I've interviewed, whether it's Laetrile, B17, there's so many different things. We have Dr. Makis using ivermectin, fenbendazole, people using red light therapy, and CDS. There's just so many different ways that people have discovered to treat cancer now. So it's a whole different story. But at that time, I just didn't know. I thought, well, these are the doctors and they must know. But I saw so many holes in the system. But anyway, so he lived for another 9 months, outside of the hospital, and was doing physical therapy, was getting closer to maybe being able to walk again, was gaining control of his hands because he had something called myoclonus, which was kind of giving him twitches and neurological damage. But he was talking and having fun and telling jokes. And my older brother was back. But then after 18 months of the entire event, the tumor came back, and I think it just stressed his system. I think that just one night that he just had a catastrophic heart attack and just died instantly one night, which is I remember that night like it was yesterday. But, so when I see these stories about organ harvesting and everything, it's just all too real. But getting back, there's actually an interesting overview that someone did, because RFK Jr. has now kind of acknowledged this publicly. This is what's big about it, right? So this is this guy, John Fleetwood. This is a Substack article he just put out yesterday, saying hospitals are harvesting organs when patients showed signs of life. There's an HHS investigation. So it says, quote, this is a quote from Kennedy, or RFK. He says, hospitals allow the organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life, and this is horrifying. So I'll just do a quick overview of some of these points of this article. It says, in a horrifying revelation, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, under the leadership of Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Monday, announced, quote, a major initiative to begin reforming the organ transplant system following an investigation by its Health Resources and Services Administration, HRSA, that revealed disturbing practices by a major organ procurement organization. It says, our findings show that hospitals allow the organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life. And this is horrifying. HHS Secretary Kennedy said, the organ procurement organizations that coordinate access to transplants will be held accountable. The entire system must be fixed to ensure that every potential donor's life is treated with the sanctity it deserves. So the HRSA directed the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network to reopen a disturbing case involving potentially preventable harm to a neurologically injured patient by the federally funded organ procurement organization serving Kentucky, Southwest Ohio, and part of West Virginia. Now, what's interesting, it says that the Biden administration saw the OPTN's Membership and Professional Standards Committee close the case without action. Okay, that changed under Secretary Kennedy's leadership. So according to HHS, the HRSA demanded a thorough, independent review of the OPO's conduct and the treatment of vulnerable patients under its care. HRSA's independent investigation revealed clear negligence after the previous OPTN board of directors claimed to find no major concerns in their internal review. So look at this. So the HRSA examined a staggering 351 cases where organ donation was authorized but ultimately not completed. It found 103 cases showed concerning features, including 73 patients with neurological signs incompatible with organ donation. My guess is that neurological signs incompatible with organ donation means that they've got brain activity that shows that they're not actually dead, and they shouldn't have their organs removed. He says at least 21 patients may not have been deceased at the time organ procurement was initiated, raising serious ethical and legal questions. Evidence pointed to poor neurologic assessments, lack of coordination with medical teams, questionable consent practices, and misclassification of causes of death, particularly in overdose cases. So this is crazy, though, that they're saying that right here, at least 21 patients may not have been deceased at the time organ procurement was initiated, right? So what that means is that, and this is just at least 28. I mean, this could be 280, it could be 2,800. I mean, because this is just, again, what they're looking at, that at least 28 people may not have even been dead, like properly dead. And so what that would tell you is, well, what then led to their death? Well, their death would have been the removal of their organs, right? Like, this is absolutely insane. And like what we'll get into in the following interview that I'll be playing for you is showing exactly what's happening over in China, right? Because it's a good contrast actually to look at, like, how does this feel when we realize that our own government and our own health institutions are, for whatever reason, my guess is that there's a lot of profit in this. There's a lot of NGOs that handle this, these kind of non-government organizations that probably get huge grants to handle the organ transplant process. How does it feel for us to know that they're literally murdering people to then take their organs? Because I'm guessing that they make a lot of money off of these organs. And actually, I know how much they make over in China because I've been studying it for quite some time, and I think it's sometimes over $1 million per body of what they can make. Like, if you look at the different things that they can actually pull out of a body: heart, lungs, liver, cornea, all kinds of different things that they're doing transplants with. The money they're making over there is absolutely insane. And again, as you'll see in the interview, it's a state-run operation. It's not some back alley black market organ trade, right? Where you wake up in a bathtub full of ice and you got a cut in your stomach, and it's like, oh my gosh, what happened? And it's like, oh yeah, the cartels, they took your liver or something, right? Or they stole a kidney from you. No, this is state-run. And so now what's crazy, here's a different article. This article is from 2013. I dug up. Dead New York woman wakes up during her organ harvesting surgery. Right. This is absolutely insane. Actually, what's crazy is that Dr. Toti, which you'll go in the next interview, he describes this. He describes what's happening when he actually was cutting open a quote unquote executed prisoner, and as he's cutting the guy open for organ removal, the heart is still beating. Okay, which is just absolutely insane. So here it says, a woman from New York woke up on a surgery table to find doctors preparing to harvest her organs for donation after they mistakenly assumed she was dead. It says Colleen Burns, 41, was a patient at St. Joseph's Hospital Health Center in 2009. She'd arrived at the emergency room following a drug overdose, the Post Standard reports, which again, being in coma, right? My brother was also in a coma, right? It's very similar to an overdose. It puts you into a state of being in a coma. So it says in the article, it says, however, following a series of mistakes, the staff thought she was dead and prepared her body for organ removal. Errors included not performing enough brain scans, not testing to see if the drugs had left her body, and not providing the recommended treatment to stop the drugs from being absorbed by her stomach or intestines. Doctors also ignored a nurse's observation that showed Burns was not dead and that she was improving. The hospital said that Burns had suffered cardiac death, and her family agreed to remove her from life support and donate her organs. The day before the surgery, a nurse performed a reflex test to ensure she was non-responsive, but her toes curled, strongly suggesting she was not dead. Her nostrils also flared up before she was taken into surgery to have her organs removed. She was able to breathe independently from the respirator she was attached to, and her lips and tongue were moving, but doctors decided to go ahead with the surgery. Records show that a nurse then gave Burns an injection of sedative. Staff only stopped the operation when Burns opened her eyes and looked at the lights in the operating room. Like, that's absolutely crazy. They're starting the organ removal operation, and the woman wakes up and stares at them as they're getting ready to cut her open to remove her organs. I mean, this is absolutely sickening. Like, it's just sickening. And again, this is why our medical system needs to be completely gutted and rebuilt. Like, to me, it's like almost like it's beyond fixing. Like, you can even see too, it's like, look at how much, RFK's hands have been tied. Who knows what kind of blackmail or like what kind of threats he has, or, who knows what it is. Like, we're up against, like, Big Pharma is not just they're not a medical company. It's like, if you go into the interviews I've done with Dr. David Martin, he refers to him as like the world's largest global drug cartel, right? That's what they are. It's a global drug cartel that is purposefully creating sick people for life through their vaccines, through their medication, and they're just making money hand over fist. They're making so much money, not to mention all the taxpayer money, all the COVID vaccines that were bought with our taxpayer money. and then sent back to us and given back to us. And, and they wanted to hide all the real results, everything. And look what's happening in our society right now. So anyway, I'm glad to see that RFK is focusing on this. Like, this is a big, big deal. One thing I would say, if you pull out your license and you see, like, on your license, make sure that you're not an organ donor on there. Now, this is your own choice, but this is my own personal advice. If you signed up and if your driver's license says organ donor, I'm not sure the exact process for removing that, but get rid of it, right? Undo that. Whether you have to go back in the DMV or whatever it is. I wouldn't trust being on the organ donor list. I'm not on it personally. Like, it's, again, I knew too much from a young age about organ harvesting over in Asia and China. And so I never joined it. I just wasn't comfortable with it. But if you are in some way, if you're on it, you might want to get off of it, because if you're in a car accident, if you're in a coma, what we're seeing is that again, the research I was doing is that these kind of organ procurement people, the organ harvesters, that they're hovering like vultures over the people that are in coma, just waiting for that moment as soon as they can come in and get the family to say, okay, go ahead and pull the plug and take care of it. They're just waiting for that. So we're not going to be jumping into the interview with Dr. Enver Tohti and Mitchell Gerber. Now this interview is probably 4 years old. It's actually when I used to have my long hair, so it's kind of slicked back. So it's Seth Man in America 1.0 you'll be looking at, but it's a very, very powerful interview. And I think it's a really important interview because as bad as things are here in America, it's a million times worse over in China. Like, and that's the thing. There's a lot of people, actually, it's weird, but there's a lot even conservatives that are like praising China right now. Like, wow, look how clean their cities are. And this is what happens when you invest in your cities. And yeah, they've got very modern cities and everything. However, I'll take our American government every day of the week over the Chinese Communist Party, because the fact is they are literally systematically harvesting the organs of their own people, innocent people, political prisoners, Christians, Falun Gong, Muslims, doesn't matter what your belief system is. Like, I would be a dissident over there. I'd probably be a prime person. Yeah, I don't smoke. I don't drink. Yeah, hey, Seth is great. He's probably got healthy organs. We're going to cut them out of him as soon as we get the chance. So the next interview, it's about a little over an hour long. It is a very, very stirring interview. It's a hard topic. So if there's young ones listening, I guess by now you're probably already warning them and hopefully not playing the organ harvesting show for them, because it's a serious topic, but it's a really important topic that we have to focus on. So please enjoy the interview. Dr. Tohti, why don't you tell us your story?
All right. I got quite a few stories to tell. But I have heard your introduction about this program. I would, you said, what will happen? The government controls that NHS or medical system. I would like all audience to think about what will happen if government controls all guns, because America is heading towards that banning your pistols, your guns. That is a first step to achieve socialism. Then all Americans, you will be like us. How? Listen to us. I was born in Xinjiang, eastern part of Xinjiang. That is northwest China. And I was an oncology surgeon. And in 1995, one day, it was a Wednesday, my chief surgeon called me and said, can you go to the theater and ask for largest pack of tools, operation tools. Then ask for 2 nurses and 2 assistants and call for our van. Then wait for me at the hospital gate next day morning, 9:30. So I did. I was quite excited. As a young surgeon, I don't know what we are going to do, but I was quite excited because definitely we are going to do something unusual. because we are going out of the hospital. The hospital I used to work, it was called the Central Hospital of Railway Bureau of Urumqi. So I got everything prepared, and the next morning, Wednesday morning, 9:30, at the hospital gate, our chief surgeon appeared in the car, and they told us, said, "Follow us." So we jumped into the van, and we started following them. And from the direction of traveling, I can say that we are traveling to the Western Mountain District. That is one of the Urumqi district. And we had a branch hospital there. I thought we are going there, but halfway to the journey, we turned left again. And I got lost. I said, "Where are we going?" And our driver, he knows. He said, "This is the way, the road going to the Western Mountain execution ground." I was scared. I said, "What are we going to do there?" And I even thought maybe they're going to shoot me. I don't know. Anyway, we were born into that society. Just like you were born straight into the washing machine, got your brain washed, and you see that system, whatever that system was, you think that is the best system. And we have been trained from this kindergarten that no questions asked. You have to do whatever you have been told to do. No matter if you are a nurse, if you are a surgeon, doesn't matter. Because in China, then there's only one employer, that is the state. Everybody, if you have a job, you are working for the state. There's no way you say, "I'm going to fire my boss." No, you can't do that. If you do, the jail cell, prison cell will be waiting for you. So, since we have been formed like that, we don't ask questions. So, by the time we arrived in that execution ground, our two chief surgeons were waiting behind a hill, and then he said, "You guys wait here, and when you hear gunshots, you come around." And we started waiting anxiously. We couldn't help but smoking, and we don't know what will happen. Then we don't know how long time passed. We start hearing the noise from other side. There are people shouting and whistles blowing, and people chanting, and you can hear truck engine noise. Then gunshots. It wasn't like a machine gun shooting. It was like many rifles shoot at the same time. Since we have been told you come around after you heard the gunshot, that means gunshot is command. So we jumped into the van and we drove in. From the left side, we can see there were more than 10 prisoners, 10 bodies lying down on the ground on the slope of the mountains. All of them, they were wearing the prisoner's uniform and shaved like me. And the bullet shoot from here and come out from here. So whole this part is blowing away. Since we were, surgeon, and we got used to see such bloodshed, we were not scared by that. Then there was a police officer said, "Go to the far right, that one is yours." And I was even more scared. Why that one is mine? What do you mean that one is mine? Anyway, we have to go. So when we come to the far right, there was another body with civilian's uniform, with long hair, lying down on the ground. And our chief surgeon called me and briefed me and said, now, do as quick as you can, remove liver and 2 kidneys. I understood what we are going to do. From that moment, I become a robot, trained robot or programmed robot to do the task programmed to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, our world is being poisoned. Every day we're exposed to more chemicals sprayed into our skies, leaching into our food, and polluting our air and water. From pesticides and heavy metals to hormone disruptors and synthetic additives, these toxins are bombarding our bodies and silently destroying our health. But there's something you can do to fight back, and it starts in your gut. Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition contains over 900 strains of beneficial probiotics that will help flush toxins, restore gut balance, and support your immune system. Because when your gut is strong, your body can resist. You'll feel the difference. Better digestion, more energy, clearer thinking, stronger immunity, and even improvements in your skin, hair, and metabolism. And this isn't just hype. Studies show that fermented foods like kimchi can reduce the risk of obesity, improve blood sugar, and support whole body wellness. Kimchi One is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made in the USA by a company that actually cares about your health. And today, you can get an exclusive offer just for my viewers, 25% off with your code MANINAMERICA by clicking the link below, or call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. So give them a call now at 888-575-6488, and their educated staff will make sure that Kimchi One is right for you. Again, that's 888-575-6488. All the links and information are in the description below.
Then it didn't take so long. But what was different was that when I cut his skin open, I can see blood coming out. That means the heart still pumping the blood. And his body also tried to struggling to resist my insertion. But he was knocked out, or off. Too weak to resist. If you ask me if I was scared or what I thought, something wrong, no. I just become a robot. And since we were educated in a way that our country was the best country on earth, we are the happiest people on earth. Imagine just like North Korea now. So anyone who has been sentenced to death is enemy of the state. And every citizen of the country has duty to eliminate enemy of the state. You see, that is our duty, to eliminate enemy of the state. So I didn't feel any guilty. I didn't have any feeling. Even to the opposite, I might even a little happy because I had such experience and doing such operation in the wild, in the field, outside of the hospital. Anyway, I found such an operation is so easy than the normal operation in the theater. In the theater, it might take 2, 3, or 4 hours, but I just used 30 or 40 minutes, because when you cut these organs out, you don't mind to damage the organs next to it, because the organ next to it, you don't need it. In the normal surgery, you have to protect everything, not to damage. But in this case, what you do is damage. I find it is really easy. So I handed over liver and the 2 kidneys. And then our chief surgeon said, okay, now you take your team back to the hospital and remember, nothing happened today. We know what that means. Since that day on, none of us has ever talked about it. Until I was in London, in Westminster, in 2009, there was a presentation by Ethan Gutman. He was introducing the concept of organ harvesting by introducing a book called The State Organ. And he made a conclusion by saying it is extremely difficult to have first-hand evidence. Then all my memories, which I tried to forget, has come back. I raised my hand and I told them, I said, I'm not going to ask a question, no comment, but I'm going to tell you a story. And that was the day I confessed to the world.
How did that feel?
That feel, I cannot say I feel really relieved. Actually, I was more worried. I worried how the rest of the world going to take me, how they are going to look at me. I was surgeon meant to save life. What I have done is I actually caused a life to stop. That man shot to the right chest so that he's knocked off, so that he will die eventually, but he will not die immediately, so that there's time for me to remove the organs. And in reality, technically, I caused his death because I removed all organ and didn't reconstruct his internal system. You see? So I was actually more worried about this, how the whole world going to look at me.
Now, well, first off, thank you for sharing that story. My goodness. It's hard to even hear.
It is.
You mentioned that you were just robotic. And I think that a lot of people that grew up outside of a communist country might have a hard time understanding that. And I remember I read one of your different articles talking about how even from childhood, you were used to seeing dead bodies. So can you share a little bit about maybe some of the things that perhaps conditioned you growing up under the dictatorship of the Chinese Communist Party that would have desensitized you to death? Because that seems to be one of the major ways that they maintain the control of their citizens.
When I was born, and the CCP is already taken control of China before I was born. So I was born straight into that system. So whatever I learned from the school is that system. So I would rather say I have brainwashed when I come to London by the civilization. My brain was washed back to the normality. But before that, my brain was empty, and then that is all things I received. So in my mind, there's violence is normal, because Chinese Communist Party's manifest is violent revolution. So they have to maintain violence. And then during the Cultural Revolution, every year we can see no less than 3 corpses, 3 persons killed themselves. They have to kill themselves in the open field, so so that people will see. Why? If the person killed himself in a closed place, nobody see that, the family will be still in trouble. The authority will ask, where is he? Where you hided him? So they have been forced to kill themselves in the open public so that everybody knows this man is dead. Yeah, that is the system. And we have seen a lot. It becomes normal to us.
Now, I have a question actually for you, Mitchell. I know that you've studied this extensively, and is this something that is a more isolated event? Is it just, criminals? I know that when China was pressed about organ harvesting, I remember seeing this in the news a couple of years back, they had mentioned that, it's just the prisoners that, are executed. So is it just the criminals themselves that they're executing anyway and they're making use of that? Or is this something more sinister?
Well, again, just hearing Dr. Invertotti's testimony, and it's just a tip of the iceberg. I sat down with the Honorable Doctor, quite a hero in my eyes and in the world's eyes, for exposing this new form of evil, Seth, that the world hasn't come to realize yet. This is a state-sanctioned genocide, normalized in Chinese society, concocted by the Chinese Communist Party, the reign of terror that has wiped out 100 million people, decimated 5,000 years of Chinese culture, destroyed intentionally millions of innocent girls. And I want to share something from a letter that I received from the World Organization to investigate the persecution of Falun Gong and others who have been slaughtered under the Chinese Communist Party. And they shared something very poignant to what you were saying to me. Is this something that is just isolated, or is this large scale? This is large scale, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that is a new form of evil, and Enver can elaborate on that. But I just want to share, 60 years ago, when Felix Frankfurter, a US Supreme Court judge of the Jewish faith, heard that the Nazis were slaughtering Jewish people in the concentration camps, his first reaction was, I can't believe this is true. This is a Supreme Court, US Supreme Court judge. American society reacted to the Holocaust, believed the unbelievable. Back then, many Germans could not believe the massacre of Jews happened nearby. Weimar is a world-famous city in Germany. It was enriched by music of Bach, the novels of Goethe, the poems of Schiller, and the architecture of Bauhaus. It has also a notorious Nazi concentration camp, Buchenwald. There were over 50 to 60,000 Jews killed there from 1937 to 1945. When the US soldiers liberated the camp, they were completely astounded by the horrific scene they witnessed. Corpses that had not been cremated or buried were everywhere. More than 20,000 prisoners were barely alive. When the horrific truth was exposed in public, the Weimar citizens could not believe it at all. In their view, the Nazi officers who guarded the concentration camps were gentle and polite. They had refined outlooks, they appreciated art. Some were moved to tears by Beethoven's music. They could not believe these people were able to carry out such heinous atrocities. One woman even accused the US military of fabricating the pictures to vilify Germany. What we are dealing with, Seth, and I've been going on this campaign or crusade to expose this for 21 years. I started on May 4th, 2001. I met up with Enver many years later, where we were on a coalition in Westminster Abbey to expose this at a child trafficking court. And the evidence is shocking. 52 pieces of evidence by David Kilgore and David Mattis and Ethan Gutman, the main investigators from Canada and America. They started the investigation in 2006, where 18 pieces of hardcore evidence was shown to prove that these allegations are confirmed through phone calls, through surgeons like Dr. Enver Tohti, through prison guards. This is run by the Chinese military. The highest ranking forms of the Communist Party, from President Xi to President Hu Jintao to President Jiang Zemin in 1999, the former president of China, have all been complicit in these crimes. The World Health Organization knows about this. The United Nations know about this. Matter of fact,
what do you think, Mitchell? I'm going to jump in quickly about I know that recently at a CNN town hall, when Biden was asked about the Uyghur, basically concentration camps, and he brushed it off as being a cultural norm. I know that Trump and especially specifically Mike Pompeo were very focused on issues like these, but do you think that Biden and his administration are aware of this, or are they doing anything against this?
They're in the bed of the Chinese Communist Party. They're aligned. So is the United Nations and the World Health Organization. I'm sure Ember can reiterate, because he's traveled to many countries with the investigators, David Kilgour and David Matas, and talked to many United Nations representatives, parliaments. So I think the sentiment is quite dismal that people have chosen to align with the CCP. Biden has chosen to align with the CCP and cover this up. Same as Clinton and same as Obama. Unfortunately,
why would they do that? Why would they choose to act like that?
I'll tell you why. Because of the money involved and the power that the CCP has over the governing bodies in this world. Look, the CCP has the second largest military, the largest population, now the largest economy. It's been infiltrating into every governing intelligence agencies, multinational corporations, social media, big pharma, you name it. The Australian just released a database of 1.95 million CCP loyalists and spies infiltrating. So they have been shutting this down and not allowing the world to know the truth. So yes, this is run by the military. And what is actually going on, Seth, is hundreds and thousands of innocent Falun Gong practitioners of this ancient spiritual meditation, mind and body practice, similar to yoga, house Christians, Tibetans, Buddhists, and Uyghur Muslims have been sent by the Chinese military to state-mandated hospitals, over 250 labor camps, 36 death camps, and over 1,800 hospitals, turning their doctors into murderers, cutting out the organs of these practitioners, particularly the Falun Gong, while alive, sedating them just a little bit, and as Dr. Enver Tohti was saying, the blood is still flowing, so these people are alive, cutting out all the organs and then selling the organs for a multi-billion-dollar business. So therefore, the old saying, see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. So this is for money. It's run by the Chinese military, and people are making a fortune. And that is why Biden has aligned himself, because of the massive amount of money that's involved.
Gosh. Actually, let's play a quick trailer. This is a trailer for a movie called Hard to Believe that Mitchell, you shared this with me beforehand, and this was very helpful for me. So let's go ahead and cue the trailer.
By 2000, Falun Gong practitioners were disappearing into labor camps in mass numbers. At the same time, Chinese hospitals began promoting their organ transplant expertise.
I'm David Matas, and with me is David Kilgour. We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. David Kilgour is a former member of Parliament and former cabinet minister for Asia Pacific, and I'm a Winnipeg lawyer doing immigration, refugee, and international human rights law in Winnipeg. And we have now done our investigation, and we're producing this report. And I didn't know whether it was true or not, and so my task initially was to try to figure out a way of approaching the issue so that I could either prove it or disprove it and not just walk away and say, I don't know.
The number of executions in China varied widely depending on who was counting. But Matas says no matter which number he used, the number of executions and the number of organs didn't add up.
The transplant volumes increased substantially after the persecution of Falun Gong began. And I mean, there's a lot of other evidence, but the most likely explanation for the increase is the Falun Gong. We pursued every investigative trail we could find. In the report, you will see that there are 18 different avenues of proof and disproof we considered and evaluated. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true. We believe them to be true, that this harvesting is indeed happening.
Matas says what made Falun Gong organs especially attractive was the practitioners' healthy lifestyle. They do not drink or smoke. On many of the recordings of phone calls made to more than 100 Chinese hospitals, doctors assure callers that transplant organs are from healthy Falun Gong practitioners.
康的法轮功是吧？健康的法轮功。
对，肯定是学好的才能做完，因为这种东西做了要保证质量的。
那是都要像你们都要做监狱去自己去挑选是吧？
对，肯定。
This is shocking. So at the end of that, you see there's recorded conversations that folks are calling and requesting specific types of organs that they want from these healthy Falun Gong. And actually, Enver, I'm going to ask you a question about this. What did you see happening like that? Through your research and you uncovering these things as well? I mean, how is it that, is there some sort of database? Where do they keep these people? How many are kept that someone can call up and almost like you're ordering meat from the butcher that you want this particular cut? How's that system work?
You asking me or Dr. Enver?
Dr. Enver, actually. Or
okay, good. Dr. Enver, no, please, yeah.
Well, I would like to start with something else, if I'm allowed. Nietzsche mentioned that persecution of Jewish people. I was also wondered how such atrocity could happen in Germany. So I come across with this book. You see, they thought they were free. And this book has taught me how to look at the country I come from. That is China. Now, the billions of Chinese people, they think they are free. They think they are the free country, and they are the democratic country. They are the most happiest people on earth. So does many Chinese doctors and nurses. It is impossible to describe this whole things in the short time period. I want to give you two examples. One of them is if you log into Chinese National Voluntarily Organ Donation Registration Agency, the website. I did this morning. The voluntarily registered donor number is slightly over 3 million. What does that say? Let me give you UK as example. UK, registered donor is 24 million. And the 24 million, it is 30%, more than 30% of its population. But 3 million is less than 0.2% of China's population. Despite on this, in China, you can have 2 pairs of lungs in 5 days. How can you do that? In UK, if you want to have a pair of lungs transplantation, you have to wait for 2 years or 3 years. But in China, only 5 days. And that is reported by the Beijing Youth newspaper in December 2019, just shortly after the pandemic. And they reported this case under the breakthrough of technology. They said they have found a new way of treating this COVID-19. How? Because if your lungs is damaged, they just simply give you a pair of new one. That case, they gave him a pair of new lungs, and this lung didn't work. In 5 days' time, they got him another pair of new lungs. Can you imagine? Just think, you come to a restaurant, and the chef asking you if you want to eat a fish, and the chef asking which fish you want to eat, and they will pick that one, and you will show them that one, and they will pick that one and prepare that for you. Because human organs is not like flesh, like meat you buy, you put in the freezer, eat 10 years later. No, it doesn't work like that. Human organs only can survive less than 10 hours outside human body. So if you want to store the human body and keep these organs alive, you have to keep the humans alive. That is to say, China is keeping enormous large number of human beings in somewhere waiting to be slaughtered.
Gosh, now, go ahead.
Yeah. So let me come back to that point I made about guns. Can anybody tell me how many Americans got killed by guns? Not during the wartime, during the peacetime. How many? I saw there was a statistic. It says less than 50,000 over 200 years period.
Wow.
Okay, 50,000. But do you know U.S. Soviet. Soviet is only government controls guns. Citizens they are not allowed to have guns. How many citizens got killed? Not during the wartime. It's 30 million. And China, how many citizens died, killed by the government? Excludes this deaths in the wartime, is 50 million. Are you ready to give up your right to survive? To become the lamb in the stable so that they will slaughter you at any time they want? So wake up, America. Don't give up.
I agree. I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. But you would think that it seems like, wouldn't you think that so many of the people in the U.S. government that are pushing for, as an example, to get rid of guns, which, yes, if you look historically across all the different countries that had genocides that were from tyrannous governments, whether it was Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Turkey with the Armenians, that gun control was always a step. Even Germany, that gun control and removing of that was always a step. So wouldn't the people that are in charge of our country understand that and want to protect us from that?
They understood that very well. They don't want to protect you. They want to protect themselves. Who is in power, who is super rich. They want to protect themselves from you. That is the agenda. And just to that question, in China, let me give you another example. In 2008, 6 Chinese surgeons has published an article under one of Chinese medical journal. And during this article, it says, it was about transplantation. It says, the donor brought into the theater and the general anesthetic applied. This tells you the donor is alive. Because if donor is dead, you don't need anesthetic. So the donor is alive and brought into the theater. Then, if this is a kidney transplantation, then I have no objection, because I can sell one of my kidney and take my money and go home. But in that case, it was combined heart and lung transplantation. Can you imagine? If you don't think carefully, you don't pick up the problem here. The problem is one human being, they only have one set of heart and lungs. And that donor was alive. So they took this donor's heart and lungs and give it to somebody else, and they didn't tell you what happened to the donor. Isn't it creepy that they have brought that execution into the medical theater where human beings' life should be saved? And that is nowadays China.
Gosh, it's incredible. It's hard to comprehend.
That is published on Chinese medical journal.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
So Mitchell, I have a question for you. Do the people that are getting these transplants, are they all Chinese? Are Americans traveling to China? Because I know that in America, the wait for certain organs could be 3, 4, or 5 years. Are there people around the world that are maybe thinking, gosh, China has a lot of prisoners they're executing, and I can go there and get a lung in a week? Are people traveling to China and unknowingly contributing to this?
Oh, absolutely. I think Dr. Enver can shed some more light on this. But what I would like to say, backing where these organs are being sold to, we know where these organs are coming from. The Falun Gong practitioners, particularly the Uyghur Muslims, House Christians, and Tibetans, the main groups. Yet, where are they being sold to? Now, Dr. Enver Tohti talked about the coronavirus, how they are selling the organs back to the Chinese people. And at endtransplantabuse.org, that I think was up on the screen about 5-10 minutes ago, there are all the books. Now, Ethan Gutman has wrote a book about the slaughter, 10-year investigation report about the Falun Gong. He's writing another book or two on the Uyghur Muslims, as Dr. Enver Tohti was talking to us back earlier. He's in Turkey now, Ethan. David Kilgore and Mattis, as you just saw on the clip from Hard to Believe, a documentary, has written Bloody Harvest, and their investigative reports are on endtransplantabuse.org. So I wanted to just follow up on what the doctor was talking about, how, first of all, the Chinese people, there's only 3 million registered, but yet why is there only such a small amount? Is because the traditional value of ancient China took very serious to keep and remain the body intact from life to death. The violation that the CCP has done has violated ancient law. It's like violating the constitutional laws of the land. You cannot do that. It's against the Constitution. It's against the Constitutional Republic. It's against to take away the guns, as we were talking about, to render the people helpless, to slaughter them, as Doctor was sharing. But there's a very interesting source of where these organs are coming from, as I was saying, and where they've been sold to. And the reason why they've been sold back to the Chinese people is because China has 130 million hepatitis B carriers. And in addition to over half of the world's new liver cancer patients, about 350,000 cases per year, for the 8 million end-stage liver patients, what do you think the most effective treatment is? Transplantation. So not only is the Chinese Communist Party doing business with the medical associations and rich foreign nationalists who come to China on a specified date, reducing waiting times from 4 to 8 years to 4 weeks to almost nowadays, and they want to get it down to hours because they've made a multi-billion-dollar business out of this, but they're selling it back to their own citizens unbeknownst to the actual population. And I remember I did a very, very intense and mind-blowing interview with Dr. Enver and Professor Sadiq on genocidal studies, and he focuses more on the Uyghur Muslims. And these two gentlemen, and Enver can attest to this, were sharing about how the Chinese Communist Party have been intentionally reducing populations and turning these people into robots and forcefully lining people up outside hospitals and blood testing them in order to steal the organs. And this is not just from adult victims. These are children as well. And Dr. Enver actually showed us the children that were trafficked in ice boxes where their organs were cut out. And it's crazy. And like I said, Seth, this hasn't been carried out by any other regime on the earth. There is a saying that many regimes, many empires, many queens and kings or dictators killed in order to conquer. The Chinese Communist Party conquered in order to kill. And this is what's going on now, just for money, for power, for control. And I think Enver could elaborate more on where these organs are sold to and who are buying them.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Enver.
Right. I think we are facing enormous difficulties in finding out who the recipients are. But we can make a clever guess. There are just people with power and the people with money. Regardless who are they. Doesn't matter you are American, you are Japanese, you are British, you are Arab. Doesn't matter. You pay money, the CCP will deliver organs for you. There was a rumor that it was rumor, but now I can tell you, a friend of mine who told me this secret information, and I couldn't reveal this, but now I can because he is dead. He passed away. He is dead in a very suspicious circumstances. He showed me a document that he didn't give it to me. He said, just Arab people or Muslim countries, they pay the money to a broker, then they will receive a letter from their own embassy from Beijing. Then they will take this letter, come to Urumqi to have organ transplantation. Why? Because that is halal organs. Yes.
Wow.
That is offered by Xinjiang because halal organ only means Muslims. Because if you are not Muslim, your organ is not halal. Unfortunately,
Wow.
such things do exist.
So you have wealthy Muslims from around the world then that are traveling to the Xinjiang region to get specifically Muslim
Yeah.
organs. Is that correct? And halal. Or my
Yes.
goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
And there was a picture taken in one of the airport in Kashgar. And on that picture, it says expressway for the organ transplantation. It is on the floor. That sign is on the floor. So if you are carrying organs, you can pass through here and then pass the control as quick as possible. Anyone saw such sign, you will understood where this airport located is exporting human organs.
Mm.
So think about it. Does this Kashgar, they have high technology that they can produce human organs in the factory? No. Only human organ only can be produced from another human being. So think again, how large that traffic has to be for them to create the special pathway for you to pass quickly. And there are three pictures. One is in Kashgar, one is in Urumqi, another one is called in Qinghai province, in Xining city. And those three airports located in the sparsely populated area of China. How that be possible? If we see such sign in Henan province, maybe we say, okay, we understand because Henan is the most crowded province of China. But no, we saw this two in Xinjiang, one in Qinghai. The whole population of Xinjiang only 25 million. How can they produce such vast number of human organs? I couldn't get my head around how. Only by looking at some other sources, we just make a clever guess. For example, starting in the middle of 2016, we have seen that the Chinese government carried out health check for the Uyghur people in Xinjiang. We asked the question, why don't you do this for Han Chinese people in Xinjiang or other minorities? Why only Uyghur? They don't. Of course, we can't get answer. They said it is under this healthcare system. We do free healthcare for you. But what we suspect is they are making organ database. And in 2017, they changed this into collecting human DNA. But human DNA, you can just swap your cheek and you can do it, but they're still taking blood. Why? Because they are doing this organ online database. So that makes this so easy. If you want an organ, you just submit your own blood sample, and they will put into the database, and they will find a man in Kashgar, in one of the Kashgar village, is a suit for you. Then this man will be arrested by police under accusation of terrorist suspect. Then he will disappear, and nobody allowed to ask where is he. Then
So
his
it's-
organ will be.
It's almost as if in Xinjiang they're keeping basically a giant cage of people that we know that with their their tracking systems and their picture ID, they can locate someone's location within minutes. So it's
Yes.
so basically they can find anybody instantly, and then they can make up a crime, the person disappears, and then
Yes.
they're gone. So there's no reason to actually even keep them in a prison. Actually, it costs more money that way. They can just let them
Yes.
live out their
That's
free until
yes,
they
that's
just disappear in a van.
exactly. And then now they put many Uyghur people in a concentration camp. That makes the job even easier.
Mm.
For example,
This reminds me, makes me think of a lot of the different discussions about the vaccine passports and the digital ID and tracking of those things. And I think the more I understand about what's happening in China with this, the more I get concerned over any kind of digital monitoring of health or tracking of citizens like that. I mean, do you see any of these things that could be potentially threatening the people in America or coming here?
if America use Chinese technology, that is not if I think that is going to be. You just 100% sure of it. I'm not suspecting that they are doing it. No, I'm sure they are doing it. That is CCP.
Yeah.
The
So
hideous-
let's I want to do a pivot into what's positive. And this has been a heavy episode, which sometimes they are. Look, the world is not a land of rainbows and happiness right now. This is a hard time we're going through. But what's being done? What has the reaction internationally been to this? And maybe actually, Mitchell, this is a good question for you because I know you've been very involved. And I also want to learn, Mitchell, more about what got you involved in the first place with this.
My heart and my conscience and my duty as a human being to do the right thing. When I was studying international business at the university, when I was doing international business, I was supported by my father in one of the top 10 business schools of Atlanta, Georgia. I am an American citizen, South African raised. My parents, well, not my parents, my grandparents, I believe, and my great-grandparents fled Nazi-occupied Hungary and Odessa and Kiev before coming to South Africa. And I was born there. Then I was raised in the States. And one day when I was at a festival, I came across this in Athens, Georgia, at the university. I came across this Falun Gong spiritual movement. And coming from a Jewish family, I loved, the rituals of Judaism and Christianity. But I was more inclined in the mysteries of the Eastern science, and I loved Bruce Lee. So I was quite fascinated by this ancient mind and body spiritual movement with these exercises, and I thought it was quite neat, and I was intrigued. I walked up and I saw, wow, what is this? And they mentioned that this is Falun Gong, an ancient meditation group of 5 exercises and a philosophy of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance that is universally accepted as in Christianity, Buddhism, Catholicism, Protestantism. So I was like, that's pretty neat. But then on the other side, I saw Stop the Brutal Persecution of Falun Gong. And I got to learn more about it, and I was so ignited by my heart to do something. So I started this campaign at 21 years old to do everything I could to expose this. And at that time, we didn't know that this organ harvesting was going on. Those are the exercises, as your viewers is watching. Those are just the exercises that bring the body of a person to incredible health. And this is why the CCP targeted this particular group that became the largest spiritual movement in China. By 1998, between 70 and 100 million people were practicing, estimates of the Chinese government themselves. And they knew how powerful and popular the exercises were, where illnesses, ailments, and injuries were just vanishing quite miraculously. It became the life force of China. And the largest amount of people, the stark contrast of ideology, just like Christianity or the Uyghur Muslim culture, where they are good people, they believe in themselves, they believe in their families. So do the Chinese people, but the CCP destroys families, dismantles the traditional values, robs people of their dignity, and kills without regard. So it completely in stark contrast to the righteous, upright religions or moral compasses that they embody. So they targeted Falun Gong. And the third reason why they targeted Falun Gong, particularly, is because their organs were incredibly healthy. So we started to see reports in 2006, when David Kilgour and David Mattis came out to expose this, confirming the allegations that between 40 and 50,000 innocent Falun Gong practitioners at that time were harvested for their organs. Now, in 1995, Enver was conducting this forced organ harvesting. So between 1995 and 2006, there were way more people that were being harvested. And the communist regime say, oh, it's just convicted prisoners. But yet, when you look into the system, the prison system, many of the prisoners are infected by hepatitis B. And because hepatitis B infects the liver and the pancreas, they render their organs unhealthy and toxic, and they cannot be sold to the highest bidder, right? So any plan of that happening would not allow the communist regime to make such a multi-billion-dollar business. So they had to resort to the prisoners of conscience. So they started to, first of all, demonize Falun Gong as some kind of terroristic cult, banned it on July 20th, 1999, has spent 1/4 of China's gross domestic profit for the last 21 years invoking the secret police, the actual Chinese military, and all levels of society, economic, political, and social, mandating and declaring a war on Falun Gong just to take them to these state-mandated hospitals, turn the doctors into murderers, kill them for their organs, and sell them for the most healthiest organs in the world, and make a fortune. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
in as little as I could say, you know.
Yeah.
It's cut a long story short.
I mean, I know that a lot of the religions have gone through persecutions over the different years, and I think that what I'm seeing and feeling in America is that the sites are starting to target Christians, right? And I think that that's also something understanding communism is that communism knows that God is what strengthens people against it, and so it tries to seep into the society and undermine, Christianity, or really any belief that gives strength against it. So, what do you think this means for Christians in America? This happening there, and what it means for us here.
You know what? I think a lot of your audience, I have an intuitive feeling, are Christians, and yes, they have been persecuted and targeted, and same as truth seekers and those of the Second Amendment, and this CCP. Radical Marxism has infiltrated into the West. And what I would say for Christians, and I actually pulled up one of my best verses. I'm not a Christian, but I definitely come from a Judeo-Christian family, and I've studied the Bible, and I'm intrigued by the Christian philosophy and Christian religion, which is upright and noble, and embodies the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And that's why Falun Gong, that's why I believe in my life when I've been dealing with a lot of ministries, and they are very empathetic to Falun Gong and understand the suffering because they know what it means to suffer. But I have an Ephesians quote which reads, "Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand firm, then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." So what I would say is to truly...
Amen. My goodness.
Yes, that's what I feel. So
thank you for sharing that.
Sure, with pleasure, Seth. And it's truly so. I encompass that because to fail to support the good, in any regard, in anywhere we live, and in any race, religion, creed, or gender, to fail to support the good and to fail to expose evil is unacceptable. So that's what I say to your Christian audience and your audience, and why it is important. If I just may add one more thing, why it is important for everybody, whether you are in America, whether you are in Japan or Asia or Italy and are 100 miles away from this madness and this evil. Why is it important? Because imagine it was your families, your friends and your colleagues being sent in mobile execution vans, your businesses being closed, your children being taken custody of, you being banned completely by an evil social credit score. What would you do?
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. My goodness. Enver, do you have a message for us here in America?
Well, I have to admit that life will be difficult if one of your organ is failed. And we understood that it is your right to extend your life. And if you have mean to do so, yes, we cannot against that. And the organ transplantation, it is very good technology. But the only question is, this technology fell into whose hand? I love to see such a technology in United States, not in CCP-controlled China, because there are many people raised the question, did this donor who gave me his organ sign this voluntarily donation paper? Was he willing to do so? Then CCP will produce whatever needed document, needed signature, and they are capable of. So only things I can say is we are, how to say, follower of Jesus or disciple of Jesus, or we are slave of the God. I don't know how to say this perfectly, but we are going to face judgment when we pass to another world. Then, for example, at least I can say, this is at least I could do. But please, when you pass to another world, don't tell God that you have caused another life death to extend your own life. Because we are equal on other world, we are equal in God's kingdom. That's all I want to say.
Amen. Thank you. You probably think your 401k is safe, that it's growing, that it'll be enough for your retirement. But what if it's not? Here's the truth most people never hear. Your 401k was never designed to make you wealthy. It was created in a corporate boardroom to shift retirement costs and investment risk onto you. designed to keep your money trapped, exposed to Wall Street crashes, inflation, and uncertainty you can't control. Until now. Right now, Americans are taking back control by turning to real assets like gold and silver. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands protect their future by converting part of their retirement savings into physical gold and silver so they can stop worrying about the market and start sleeping better at night. So talk to Noble Gold today and learn how safe and easy it is to roll over your 401k into a tax-advantaged precious metals IRA without penalties or headaches. Visit goldwithseth.com or call 626-654-1906 to get your free wealth protection kit, including a step-by-step guide to get started. It's time to get your money out of the danger zone and into something real. Again, that's 626-654-1906 or goldwithseth.com.